We are excited to be with you as you start your service and glad to have you participating in this webinar called Launching Your VISTA Service. My name is Chris Hawks.
And I am Andy King. We're coming to you from Washington, D.C., VISTA headquarters. You'll also see our colleagues. We have Kate Jordan, Brittany Madison, Kim Adams, and Steve Gray. You'll see them in the chat and the Q&A to assist you throughout the presentation. So now that you know a little bit about who we are and where we're located, we want to know where it is that you are serving. So you might remember this from last week. We're going to use the annotation tool again so we can get a visual of where everyone is located. You can't actually access the tool right now. I'm just going to explain how to use it, and then in just a second you'll see it appear. So to use it, you'll notice on the slide you can see what it looks like. On the left toolbar, you see a square that has like a square in it. So it's a block there with a square. And next to that little square is a little triangle. So you're going to want to click on that little triangle, and that will activate or open up the shape options toolbar, which will come out across the screen. And from there, you want to select either the check mark or the X. Then move your mouse to the location on the map where you're serving and click. You probably remember from last week, don't drag or else you'll cover up the whole map. So you just want to do one simple click, leave your X or your check mark, and we'll know where it is that you're serving. If you're unable to use the annotation tool, say if you're on a smartphone, then you can just type your city and state into the chat panel. All right, so that's how it works. We're going to activate that now so you can start putting your mark on the map. And while you're doing that, I'll just mention we have AmeriCorps VISTA members serving in all 50 states, as well as in many U.S. territories and tribal communities. And with all the people who are attending this webinar, there's close to 200 of you, I think, it's great to see where it is that you're serving. So I've seen a couple of dots appear, a couple of X's. Yeah, I'm going to add mine here. I think there's a little bit of a lag today in the way our Adobe Connect is working, so apologies if you're running into that issue. Now we can see it. The map is filling up. We've got folks along the Mid-Atlantic region, a lot in Florida, central states there. We've got Missouri, Arkansas, Oklahoma. Let's see, Four Corners states, the Northwest, Pacific Northwest, and I see a big arrow pointing to Puerto Rico. So I'm guessing that means we have some of our Puerto Rico vistas here as well. So it's great. Love to see the diversity of locations here, and hopefully you'll be able to use this webinar as a chance to do some networking, and we'll tell you about the VISTA campus again where you can find other vistas. So, so not only the map on the VISTA campus, but the discussion forums there as well. So thank you for that.
And now that you have a feel for where other vistas are serving, we want to go over the session objectives for today. So in this webinar, we're going to describe VISTA's mission and the VISTA program, review a few of VISTA's recent accomplishments, identify people and resources that can support you, highlight action items needing your attention both today and in the coming days, and we will, at the end, administer the oath of service. So Andy, you want to kick us off with the first objective?
Sure. So first up, let's welcome you to AmeriCorps VISTA. You're about to join a national movement that has a very rich history. There's some 200 or more VISTA members who are starting service with you today. And currently, there are more than 5,000 VISTA members serving in rural and urban areas, and as I said, in all 50 states, as well as several territories and tribal communities. Volunteers in Service to America, or VISTA, has been supporting and at times leading the change toward economic equity for more than 50 years now. Our strength comes from the talent, the motivation, and the energy of our members, which will soon include all of you. So let me thank you for stepping up to share your skills and your passion to serve our communities. It truly is an honor for me to welcome you on behalf of the VISTA program. I hope you feel the warmth and support from us and from your fellow VISTA members. So now let's take a look at some of the milestones in VISTA's history that have led us all to this moment.
The VISTA program was born out of the civil rights movement and the war on poverty in the mid-1960s, and social equity and economic opportunity remains our mission. Our first volunteers were assigned in 1965 to Appalachia, Hartford, Connecticut, and camps of the migrant farm workers in California. President Lyndon Johnson, whom you can see in this photo, said to those first VISTAs, "The initials of your organization spell VISTA. It is an appropriate name, for you will be opening up new vistas of hope for the poor, achievement for yourself, and greatness for your nation."
Fast forward about 30 years to 1993, and VISTA joins AmeriCorps, becoming part of a network of national service programs of an agency that's called the Corporation for National and Community Service, or CNCS. You may have heard of some of our grantees and our partners, like Habitat for Humanity, City Year, Teach for America, as well as the Rockefeller Foundation and Service Year. And that's in addition to the programs that CNCS manages directly, specifically Senior Corps and AmeriCorps. And within AmeriCorps, you can see there listed AmeriCorps NCCC, AmeriCorps State National, and of course, AmeriCorps VISTA. So you're joining the ranks of over 220,000 VISTA alums that have already served. And VISTA alums have gone on to make significant contributions in other ways, such as serving in the U.S. Senate and the House of Representatives, heading up the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, founding and leading nonprofit organizations, hosting a program on NPR, and even writing a little series of books called A Song of Ice and Fire, which some of you may know as the television series Game of Thrones. And that's just to name a few.
And we know that the VISTA program is committed to economic equity. But if someone were to ask you what VISTA's mission is, how would you explain it? What really makes VISTA unique in the federal government? Well, we would start with this, which is our elevator speech. The VISTA program strengthens organizations that alleviate poverty through the mobilization of volunteers and resources. And in addition to our mission, there are 4 principles that underpin the program. First up, ending poverty. Every VISTA project and every VISTA member aims to end or alleviate poverty one person, one family, or one block at a time. Second, empowering communities. In contrast to parachuting in and doing good things for people, VISTA members live among and involve community members in planning and carrying out the project. This is often facilitated by your sponsor, but strengthening and improving the community is our long-term goal through learning about values and beliefs and applying good community development principles. And third, creating sustainable solutions. So whatever you develop or create, whether it's a process, a system, or resources, you will develop them in such a way that people will be able to use them once you're gone. And fourth, building capacity. All VISTA members aim to either increase the size of a project, increase the number of people served, improve the project's efficiency, or maybe improve the project's impact on the community. That is how we measure capacity. So we're going to spend a moment going over capacity building and what exactly that looks like.
All right. So in the VISTA mission and program tutorial that you completed, if you think back about that, it was one of the online pre-service coursework elements that you did. But in the VISTA mission tutorial, you learned that your VISTA service should focus on building the capacity of your organization as opposed to performing direct service. This is a unique aspect of the VISTA program which sets it apart from all the other AmeriCorps programs. Quickly, capacity building in essence is about helping your organization to do more with what they have so they can serve more people or operate more efficiently. Direct service, on the other hand, is about providing tangible assistance directly to those who need it. So to make sure that you understand and have a good feel for what we're talking about, we're going to play a quick round of a game called This or That to explore the differences between capacity building and direct service. And for this activity, we'll be using the annotation tool. Again, this probably looks familiar from last week. That annotation tool is going to display in just a moment as soon as we're ready for you to use it. So how it works, we're going to read aloud a service activity, and using your annotation tool, you're going to click, again with a small X or a check mark in the section under capacity building or direct service to indicate which one you think that activity is. Again, please don't drag it, just click. And if you're using a cell phone or tablet, you can just type your answer in the chat. So first up, we have
recruiting volunteers to build houses. So using the annotation tool, as some of you have already gone on, place your X to indicate whether you think it's capacity building or direct service.
Wow, it's pretty much unanimous with maybe one dissenter there.
Yeah, and same in the chat. Looks like capacity building, maybe one direct service. Okay, definitely a vast majority on capacity building. Give it a couple more seconds. Oh, and a big one comes in. And the answer, the correct response is capacity building. So the vast majority of you got that correct. And this is because you are not directly building the house. You are developing capacity by recruiting volunteers who will then be able to do the construction work as well as engage with the organization in other ways.
All right, very good. You guys are definitely on top of this. Next up, how about delivering meals through a Meals on Wheels type program? Again, is it capacity building or direct service? Boom, right out of the gate.
Yeah.
So many people in the direct service, in the chat, direct service. A very large, definitive check mark there. Yeah, so you guys got it. This is direct service. And the reason, of course, is because in this example, if you were doing the meal delivery, you'd actually be picking up food and delivering it to the people in need. If you were to do some capacity building activities related to this, it could look like, say, working to improve the Meals on Wheels program, or maybe putting together policies and procedures, or perhaps developing partnerships that would help with the food delivery itself or with the program. So good job.
Yeah, there's probably a 99% correct response rate, so maybe this next one will be more difficult, maybe not. But how about teaching a financial literacy course? Is that capacity building or direct service? And we see some responses coming in. Looks like a lot more on the direct service side, but a little bit more of a mix this time.
A lot of the chat says direct service. There's capacity building in there as well.
Okay, like at least there's a mix, makes it interesting. We'll give it a few more seconds. Okay, and so the correct answer is it is direct service. So most of you did get that correct. And it's direct service because this example involves hands-on educating individuals. Some capacity building activities that a VISTA would do would include things like developing the curriculum for the financial literacy course, or maybe connecting with other organizations who can refer clients to take the course, or maybe identifying financial literacy experts to advise the curriculum development.
All right. Next up is organizing a fundraiser. This is something that many of you will likely do. Is that capacity building or direct service? Organizing a fundraising activity or event. All right. Bunch of you in the capacity category.
Yeah.
A few people right on the line. A couple of folks over in the direct service territory.
Looks like the chat is mostly capacity building.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, those of you who said capacity building are correct. And the reason is that raising resources, like funds, like fundraising, raising money, is capacity building. Because the money that gets raised will build the resources of the organization and allow it to do its work. All right. I think we have one more.
Yeah, just one more. So how about setting up partnerships in the community? Is that capacity building or direct service? We'll look out for the answers coming in. There's a tiny lag on our end, so we haven't seen the answers come in quite yet. The suspense is killing me.
Yeah, we may be waiting for that annotation tool to reset. Not seeing any activity, so maybe we've got it frozen here. We could try typing into the chat to see if that works.
Don't see any responses in the chat.
All right, well, could be. Then that tells me we've got a definite lag problem here. So we don't keep you all on the edge of your seat. We're going to go ahead and verbally give you the answer there, and we'll get this thing reset.
Yeah,
okay.
Given the fact that you were all almost 90% correct on the other ones, I'm sure most of you all just said capacity building, because that's the correct answer. And this is because you are striving to link the community with organizations, people, funds, and more to eliminate poverty and make a positive difference. So basically, you are building capacity by helping community members find new ways to get things done and new partners to help them do it. You guys did really great on this, almost all correct answers, and even if you missed one, hopefully you learned from it.
All right. Yeah, good job. So let's shift gears a little bit and take a look now at what it is that you'll be doing in your individual VISTA project, and look at how that connects to the mission of the VISTA program. So if you believe that we have a responsibility to bring an end to poverty, and if you're committed to working with communities, then you have come to the right place.
And we'd like you to reflect for a moment on the key principles that we went over of the VISTA program. These 4 principles guide community development for us. Community work requires coordination, even collaboration, and working together towards long-range goals. So as you think about these principles that we've been talking about, we want to ask which one resonates with you. So we'll now invite you to use the chat panel to share which of the principles does resonate with you, and in a few words, just say why. So maybe it's ending poverty. Before the session started, a lot of you said you joined VISTA because you wanted to help people move out of poverty. Maybe empowering the community is a passion of yours through working with community stakeholders to identify needs and putting those needs into action with the help and support of the community. Perhaps capacity building is at the heart of who you are and what you do. Maybe you see a project and can identify a plan to increase its effectiveness and engage more individuals. Or on the last one, maybe sustainability is something that drew you to your VISTA position. Maybe you have an eye for processes and developing them in such a way that they can be used once you've left. So looking in the chat, and the lag issue is continuing on our end, but please continue to type in the chat as you can. We're going to look out for some of these answers. And just going to check and give it a few seconds. And while you guys are typing, we'll look out for those. So the good thing is that all four of these are important and all of them are useful. So hopefully, as you look at what you will be doing as a VISTA, you'll be able to pinpoint activities that touch on some or all of these key principles.
Yeah, so I see the responses flooding in now after a little bit of a lag. Interestingly, there's a lot of you who are talking about empowering the community, working in partnership with others, getting the community members engaged, and some of you have commented that that is actually going to result in more sustainable solutions, because if the community is involved in owning it, that they'll have an interest in keeping it going even after your year is finished. This is great. Of course, there's a number of you talking about poverty, ending poverty, and how important that is. But yeah, this is great. Finding long-lasting local solutions. Yeah. So, and also I have to say, some of you were sharing in the chat before we got started about why you joined VISTA, and that same sentiment was there as well. Really wanting to make a difference, make a lasting difference, something that would persist even after you finish your year. So yeah, this is great.
Great. And so through your VISTA service, you'll be able to talk about how to sustain the work you're doing by building capacity, empowering communities, and how these efforts contribute to ending poverty. And so progress in this type of work is slow. It's very slow and incremental. And it's important to know that our work isn't just about fixing stuff. It's about sharing perspectives and skills. The results of your work as a VISTA member surely won't be apparent immediately, and it won't happen overnight, which at times may be a little frustrating throughout your service. But once you step back, you'll be able to see the larger changes that have resulted from your work.
All right. So let's focus now on what it is that you will be doing as a VISTA member. And the best way to do that is by reviewing what's called your VISTA assignment description, what we fondly refer to as the VAD. Each VISTA has a VISTA assignment description that was created by the VISTA project. Now, you might have received yours during your interview and selection process, or maybe your VISTA supervisor gave it to you when you arrived on site today. If not, you can always download it from your account in My AmeriCorps. But the VAD's really important, so you're going to want to have yours available. And we're going to take a minute just to look to see what is in the VAD. So all VADs include the following three elements: a project goal, several objectives, and then a number of member activities. So the project goal is related to, or maybe it's identical to, the overall goal of the VISTA project. The objectives then describe what it is that you will achieve by the end of your service year. The objectives are a bridge between that overall project goal and your specific member activities. And then, of course, those member activities specify what it is that you will be doing during this year. Those activities should add up to the objectives, and the objectives should add up to the overall goal. Now, each of you has your own VAD or your own assignment description, no matter how many VISTAs may be serving or have already served at the same project. Because the VAD is your work plan for the year, we strongly recommend that you focus on it with your supervisor in the next few weeks, and that you refer to it throughout your year of service. There's a worksheet that's part of your early service coursework, and you'll find that on the Starting VISTA page of the VISTA campus. This VAD worksheet can help you sort of tease apart the various elements of your VAD, and it gives a nice framework for you and your supervisor to discuss your tasks step by step. So it's a good idea to download the worksheet as well as printing out your VAD, and then start filling out the worksheet so that you're well prepared to discuss your assignment description with your supervisor. And if you don't already have a meeting set up with your supervisor, here's a really good reason to schedule one. The VAD is a great place to start a conversation about your year of service. Now this week is the week that you should be introduced not only to your VISTA supervisor, but also to other VISTA members, if there are any, on your project, as well as to the staff and volunteers of the organization who you may be working with throughout your year.
So we'd like to hear from you again, and based on what you know about your VAD, what will you be doing as a VISTA? What steps, tasks, or activities will you be doing to help eradicate poverty or build capacity in your community and in your organization? Again, please type your answer in the chat panel so that everyone here on the webinar can see. It really is inspiring to show how everyone from around the country is helping to eradicate poverty. This can just be a couple of words or a brief sentence if you like.
All right, so lots of responses pouring in, everything from expanding a volunteer program, conducting marketing and outreach, developing opioid prevention programming. See, here's some hunger-related organizations, food pantry work.
Research in rural Arizona needs an asset assessment.
See, expanding affordable housing opportunities. Wow, these are coming so fast, it's really hard to read.
With food pantries and after-school programs, legal services. Abuse, wow.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Some of them, will say like, working a food pantry or developing youth. But that doesn't tell us exactly what you're going to be doing as a VISTA. Like, we'll know the realm or the area that you're working in, but it's good for you to think about what precisely is going to be your role in all of that.
Developing groups of agencies to help provide resources to low-income homeowners. I've read that a few times.
Yep, here's building organizational capacity through resource development, marketing, community organizing, working with partners. Great, so that's a very specific sort of description of what that particular VISTA is going to be doing.
Yeah. And these are great. Please, please, please keep these coming in, not only for us to see, but also for the fellow VISTAs on this webinar can see what's going on around the country. It really is inspiring. So to hear these wide variety of responses and how much VISTAs do, it's remarkable. So as you get started in your VISTA service, you'll be focusing a lot on the what it is you will be doing. So as we move on, and as we mentioned, there were a lot of wonderful things mentioned in those chat responses that continue to pour in. But we want to take a second now and ask, so what? And what we mean by that is, so what if you plan a community meeting, for example? If you bring people together around a common issue, what's the next step and what is the goal?
So what if you are in resource development, you write grant proposals? How will writing a grant proposal actually make a difference in the community?
Some of you mentioned in the chat about recruiting. So what if you recruit volunteers? Why specifically is it important to have other people assisting with the project?
Or so what if you write a lesson plan? What purpose would that lesson plan achieve, and how will it impact others within the community?
And so the big question we ask is, so what? And we ask this because we want you to really reflect on the why. Think about this question in your service activities and certainly when you're reviewing your VAD, as well as when talking with your supervisor. Taking time to think about the reason behind your activities and the purposes of the things you're doing is going to help you create the intended impact of your VISTA service.
So the impact you make this year really depends on you. And it also depends on your community, your VISTA project, and a lot of times, a little bit on good luck. So think about the so what when answering this next question. What impact do you hope to make as a VISTA member? And by impact, we mean what will be the end result rather than what will your activities look like. So what will happen as a consequence of your success? So think about this overarching goal as you go into your year of service. The work isn't always immediately satisfying, but it is important. So keeping the impact in mind will help you get through the tough times when you feel that you might not be making any difference. So we've got a number of you writing in the chat at the same time, so let's see what's coming in.
Reading through these, okay.
Yep, so here it is. Training and recruiting volunteers is going to result in expanded education for young students.
Okay. Curriculum development will increase knowledge of other positions in the organization.
Yep, we're going to increase mental health awareness in Native American communities and empower them to be more united.
Looking through, coming in.
Building more sustainable systems within the communities. Creating a wider variety of activities for local youth after they get out of school. Spreading compassion and knowledge.
Building capacity for long-term recovery from Hurricane Irma.
Wow. Increasing education rates and creating capable kids who are then going on to become capable adults. All right, so wow, these are great. So it's clear that you've really got a good handle, many of you, on not only what it is you're going to be doing, but what the result of that is going to be, what it's going to look like. And that's really the impact. That's the whole reason why. And that's the so what that we talked about. So feel free to keep your responses coming in. I think your impact statements really are inspiring, and hopefully keeping your intended outcomes front of mind will inspire you as you move through your VISTA year. All right, so speaking of outcomes, let's take a look at some of the things that other VISTA members have accomplished recently so that you'll have a sense of how your accomplishments are going to add to the bigger picture. And these things I'm going to show you are just the measurable, not the intangibles, which are often the most interesting. So these data come from 2017. It's the last full year that we've got the data for. And in that year, VISTA's raised $206 million in cash and in-kind donations for their sponsoring organizations. And it's important to note that that's more than twice what Congress gives the VISTA program to run the whole program. So that's amazing. There's no other federal agency that takes this congressional appropriation and more than doubles it. So way to go, VISTAs. Let's see, VISTAs have recruited, trained, and assigned some 800,000 community volunteers who collectively served more than 8 million hours. Now, the National Center for Children in Poverty estimates that 16 million children in the U.S., about 1 in 5, live below the poverty line, and VISTA members made it possible for their sponsors to serve 3 million of those children in after-school programs and tutoring, assistance in food security. So obviously the VISTAs weren't providing direct service to those 3 million children, but their capacity building allowed that number of disadvantaged youth to be served. Likewise, programs supported by VISTA members served some 140,000 veterans and military families. And in a single year, about 8,500 VISTA members built the capacity of more than 4,500 nonprofit and public agencies. About 70% of VISTAs serve in their own hometown. And since 1965, more than 220,000 VISTAs have served. So again, these are just some of the remarkable impacts that VISTA members like you have made, are making, and will make.
And before we move on, I just wanted to point out, I know there's been a little bit of lag for some, including ourselves, on this webinar, and we've gotten a few mentions in the chat. And a quick suggestion would be if you type something in the chat, for instance, and don't see it appear, it might have just frozen, although you can still hear the audio. We would just suggest that you X out and then click the link really quick to come back in. And that seems to have cleared it up for those who have done that in the chat or in the Q&A as well. Just wanted to point that out. As you see, this is a quick review on what we've just covered. So we've looked briefly at how VISTA relates to other national service programs. We then dove into the VISTA mission and its key principles and discussed how they relate to your VISTA assignment description, or VAD. And finally, we shared with you some of the impact VISTA members have had in the past year. So now let's shift to looking at your rights and responsibilities as a VISTA member and some sources of ongoing support for you during your year of service. So we're going to start with talking about some important issues that you've learned about in the Civil Rights and Responsibilities course that you took on the VISTA campus. The VISTA program takes very seriously the issues of discrimination and harassment. So we want to make sure you're all aware of what your rights are as well as your responsibilities. And as you learned, discrimination is when receiving treatment that is different because of a difference in sex, race, or any other protected class. Harassment is behavior that is severe or pervasive and creates an intimidating, hostile, or offensive environment. If you believe that you have experienced or witnessed discrimination or harassment, and if you feel safe and comfortable doing so, here are steps you should take. And first, approach and talk directly to the person you suspect of engaging in harassing or discriminating behavior. Second, if that does not work, or if you do not feel safe and comfortable doing so, you should talk to your VISTA supervisor. Third, if you cannot go to your supervisor, or you do and the matter is not resolved to your satisfaction, you should then contact your CNCS state office. And then finally, you can contact the CNCS Equal Opportunity Program, or EOP. And that phone and email is listed on this slide. It's also mentioned, and there's a link to it in the Helpful Links document and the handouts to download. So rights go hand in hand with responsibilities. So while you have the right to a service experience that is free from harassment and discrimination, you also have the responsibility not to subject anyone to harassment or discrimination. So please be conscious of how your words and actions might be perceived by others, whether that's fellow VISTAs, staff at your site, or community members. And as a reminder, again, the contact information is in the handouts to download. A common comment that we get is that double-clicking does not work, so you have to just select it and then down below click the button that says Download Files. And if you're on a mobile device and can't access those but would like these helpful links, feel free to reply to the emails from me, Chris Hawks, and I can shoot you an email with that attachments. And then moving on, AmeriCorps VISTA is a federal program. So like anything supported by taxpayer funds, we need to ensure that the program is well run, doing what it's supposed to, and spending money wisely. And like all federal agencies, CNCS has an Inspector General whose office is responsible for preventing and detecting waste, fraud, and abuse. Most VISTA sponsors are familiar with the rules and do a good job of following them. But sometimes things can get off track. There are a few red flags we want you to be aware of. If you're being asked to take over the work of a staff person, say someone who is out on extended leave, that is considered replacing staff and it's not allowed in VISTA. Or if most of what you're doing is administrative support for someone else, that's also not appropriate work for a VISTA member. You should instead be focusing on things outlined in your VAD, which ties directly to the overall project plan that was approved by CNCS. And finally, the majority of your work should be capacity building, not direct service. From your coursework in today's activities, you now have a good idea of how to distinguish between the two. So be sure you're focusing on capacity building. And if you feel you're being asked to do things that aren't appropriate for VISTA members, please first talk about it with your supervisor. From there, you can talk with your CNCS state office. And again, as a reminder, as we went over in last week's webinar, your CNCS state office, there's a link to that in the helpful links to identify their contact information, but it's also the state abbreviation at cns.gov. But even then, after you contact the CNCS state office, if the issue isn't resolved or if you wish to remain anonymous, you can contact the CNCS Office of Inspector General, and that contact information is here as well as in the helpful links. This is one of your responsibilities, to say something if you see something.
All right, and speaking of responsibilities, here is one more thing that you're responsible to do. We mentioned last week that you'll need to submit fingerprints so that we can run a background check. And we do this, of course, to protect the community members and the volunteers we work with, yourselves included. So let's talk about how it is you'll get fingerprinted. Your supervisor has your fingerprint kit that includes 2 fingerprint cards, a disclosure form, and a set of instructions. You should also be given a UPS label that you can use to ship your fingerprints to VISTA headquarters. You're responsible for getting fingerprinted and submitting your fingerprints to VISTA. You can go to a local police station, a sheriff's department, or other fingerprinting location and bring the cards that your supervisor gives you. Bring those cards with you. Your fingerprints must be submitted in ink on our cards. We cannot accept electronic submissions or a fingerprint report. We need the actual prints, and they have to be on our card because that's the card we can submit to get them processed. The VISTA program provides you with a $25 fingerprint subsidy, and that will be included in your first living allowance payment. You have 30 days to get this done, but please do it as soon as possible. So in your case, since you're starting today, March 18th, the deadline to submit your fingerprints is Wednesday, April 17th. And be aware that if you don't submit your fingerprints on time, it could result in termination from service. So please don't let that happen. And if you find out your supervisor doesn't have the fingerprint kit or the shipping labels, your supervisor can contact the CNCS state office immediately to get them. So the other part of the process, once we get your fingerprints and they get processed, is comparing the background check results to what it is that you disclosed on your AmeriCorps application. You might recall that when you applied, you were asked if you had ever been committed or convicted, rather, of a crime. Now, it's possible that you didn't disclose everything in your AmeriCorps application. Maybe you thought you didn't need to include it because it happened a long time ago, or maybe you thought that a DUI was a traffic violation, or maybe because something happened while you were a minor and you were told it was expunged and you didn't include it on your AmeriCorps application. If any of those or any other reason applies to you and you did not disclose something, specifically a conviction in your AmeriCorps application, then you will need to fill out the member disclosure form that's included with the fingerprint cards. And you'll need to send in that disclosure form as instructed. So when your FBI report comes back, our team here at VISTA headquarters is going to compare that report to the disclosures in both your online application and the disclosure form. And if everything lines up, you won't hear from us. And in fact, a minor offense with no relation to your assignment will generally not interfere or prevent you from serving. However, if there's a conviction that shows up on your report but you have not disclosed it to us, that alone could be grounds for dismissal. And we're going to have extensive follow-up. So if you can, by all means, use that disclosure form and disclose. Now, on a lighter note, one of the greatest things about being part of AmeriCorps VISTA is showing off your VISTA pride. You never know where you may make a connection with someone who already knows about the program. So we invite you to put the AmeriCorps VISTA logo on your business card, in your email signature, and of course on your organization's website and maybe some of their brochures. The more visible you are, the more support you get for your project, but also for the AmeriCorps VISTA program as a whole. And that support can mean more VISTA members in more communities doing the work that needs to get done. The helpful link handout, which you can download there, includes links to business card templates, as well as to publications and gear that you can use in your office to represent VISTA in the field. We also ask that you please take pictures of your service and share them with us through our Twitter and Facebook accounts. We may well share your story or retweet your photo, so we can help amplify whatever message it is that you're putting out there. And you're going to receive an email with instructions on how to order your free, yes I said free, VISTA polo shirt, lapel pin, a tote bag, a t-shirt, a water bottle, and a VISTA journal. And you'll get that email within the next couple of weeks once your oath form has been submitted and all your forms and coursework have been completed. So stay tuned, watch your inbox for that.
So let's recap some of the many sources of support for VISTAs. You already know about My AmeriCorps and the VISTA campus. And this graphic here is just a reminder of the list of resources that's on the starting VISTA page of the VISTA campus. And FYI, there is a direct link to this available in the Helpful Links document in this webinar. So whether it's a question about sick leave or healthcare benefits, pay schedule, or policy, this list can point you in the right direction. For benefits questions, you can also contact the benefits administrator directly. And if you've exhausted all other options, you can contact the VMSU, or VISTA Member Support Unit, through the National Service Hotline. They are here to support you throughout your year of service. So now, let's look at what's ahead for you as you get into your VISTA service. There are 7 elements of early service coursework that we ask all VISTAs to complete. They're self-directed and intended to help prepare you for success. First up is a guide to help you make the most of your on-site orientation and training, which is the training provided by your supervisor to prepare you for what you will be doing at your site. The minute intro exercise helps you develop your elevator pitch so you can clearly and succinctly explain to others who you are and what you're doing as a VISTA. The resource on theories of change looks at various ideas about what causes poverty and theories on how to reduce or eliminate it. There's also a cool little video explaining how poverty is measured in the United States and a worksheet to help you unpack your VAD and use it as the foundation for your work plan for the year. There's a tutorial on how to understand the community you are serving by looking at demographic data and research, and a video with Dr. Stephen Pimpere sharing 13 lessons about poverty that came out of the VISTA program. So the worksheets and resources dovetail nicely with your on-site orientation and training and can provide structure for the first few meetings with your supervisor. We're not going to collect your worksheets. They're there for your own benefit, and we hope you will use them. And I just want to point out one other action item is our in-service training. So if we look a little further ahead in your service, not necessarily these next couple of weeks, but maybe a month or two down the line, VISTA offers an in-service training to members early in their service terms, typically between months 2 through 5 of service. In-service training addresses common training needs among VISTA members, provides an environment for VISTA members to discuss their projects and ask questions in person, and offers a forum for VISTAs to connect with their peers. And at this point in their service, that 2 through 5 month, participants should be able to identify their training needs and really be able to apply knowledge from the training for the remainder of their term. These trainings are optional, so they're not required. There are 4 core training modules and an additional 6 elective ones that are all developed by CNCS. So you will be notified of an in-service training opportunity based on your geographic area via email. So be sure to keep your email address up to date in your MyAmeriCorps portal throughout your year of service. For these trainings, supervisor approval is required. Again, as you go over your VAD with your supervisor and as you go through your initial activities as a VISTA, you can begin thinking and pondering on some potential areas of training that you might need or require to really accomplish your goals as a VISTA.
All right, so we've covered a lot, and we just want to highlight a few key decisions and actions that you'll need to complete today and in the next couple of weeks. The first of these items relate to your VISTA benefits. So first up is your direct deposit. As we mentioned last week, your direct deposit details need to be perfectly correct in order for you to be paid on time. Any small mistake can result in a 2-week delay, so please double check the information that you put in MyAmeriCorps. As a reminder, your first living allowance pay date is April 5th, 2019. And remember, if you're paid directly by your VISTA sponsor, your pay schedule may vary, so check with your supervisor. Second up is your end of service award. You know that you have 2 options, either the cash stipend or the education award. If you chose the cash stipend, today is the last day for you to change your mind. If you choose the education award, you have 10 months to change that selection. And then third is health care. Again, you'll be eligible for one of the benefits that VISTA offers, and which one depends on whether you already have health insurance. If you have insurance, you can enroll in the health care allowance, which will reimburse your out-of-pocket costs. If you don't have insurance or other coverage, then you can enroll in the health benefit plan. In about a week to 10 days, you will receive an email from our administrator called IMG with instructions on how to enroll. And you can always refer to the benefits section of the VISTA campus for more details. And let's see, there are a few other action items that you'll work on over the next couple of weeks. So first is to set up a recurring meeting with your supervisor so that you can discuss the VISTA project and your progress on a regular basis. Second is to complete the early service coursework that Chris talked about. You'll find it on the Starting VISTA page of the campus. Make sure you have downloaded a copy of your VAD that'll help you complete the OSOT worksheet and the VAD worksheet. Third, get fingerprinted and submit a member disclosure form if you need to, and you've got to get that done within 30 days. And fourth, order your VISTA gear. And as a reminder, that instruction email will come in about a week to 10 days.
So now let's discuss the oath of service. And before we start, we know that there are a lot of you on the webinar, close to 200, maybe a little bit more, and you may or may not already have the oath form printed. If you do not have a hard copy of the oath printed and in front of you, we would say please do not leave to print it right now because we have some very important instructions to go over and we really need everyone to pay attention. If you don't have that printed copy, you could just use your cell phone or jot down some notes or a photo screenshot for these instructions over these next couple of slides. And afterwards, you can use that information to complete the oath. The oath of service is an important step in you becoming a VISTA member. And because of the importance of this topic, we are going to pause the chat at this time. We will be posting instructions in that chat area regarding the oath, and we want to make sure everyone sees the information that we're sharing. Once we're done with the oath, we'll open the chat back up to comments. And if you have any questions at this time, you can certainly continue to type those in the Q&A panel, which is below the slides, and our team will either answer them as soon as we can, or we will hold them for the end of the webinar.
All right, so you're ready to take the oath of service, and to do this, as Chris mentioned, you need a printed copy of the AmeriCorps VISTA oath form, and if you don't have it handy, later on you can download it, print it, but right now we want you to stick with us so that you don't miss any of the instructions. So here's how you fill out that form. Some of these instructions may seem obvious, but you'd be surprised at some of the things that we have submitted to us. And it's important to note that if your oath form isn't correct, then we're going to have to send it back to you and have you redo it, and that is going to create a little bit of a delay in getting you activated and started as a VISTA. So please pay close attention. Also note that an original ink signature is required on the oath form. Digital signatures cannot be accepted. So as mentioned, the form has to be printed out. You're going to fill it in by hand and sign it in ink, both by yourself and your witness will also need to sign it. But again, if you don't have the form printed right in front of you, just take notes on what we're sharing, or you can take a picture of the screen. Then after the session, you can fill out your oath form. All right, so start at the top of the form. In box 1, please print and make it really legible. Print your full legal name. That's the same name that you used in your AmeriCorps application. In box 2, write the name of the organization that is sponsoring your VISTA project. That's likely the organization where you will be serving. In box 3, enter the city and state where you're serving. And in box 4, put today's date, March 18th, 2019, as your first day of service. And in box 5, list the name of the CNCS official who's administering the oath, and that is going to be Chris Hawkes, C-H-R-I-S-H-A-W-K-E-S. So you can see it there on the screen. As I mentioned, it's really important that you fill this out correctly because if your name or any other information isn't correct, it cannot be accepted.
And now that the logistics are out of the way, let's consider the oath you're about to take, because you really shouldn't take it lightly. This is the same oath taken by all federal employees up to and including the Vice President, and the President's oath is a little bit different. And in the oath, it includes the phrase, to defend the Constitution of the United States. So let's take a look at the word defend. This is not a call to arms. For some, in some positions, it may be. But for most of us, defense of the Constitution may be just the opposite of using arms. The Constitution is not an administration, not even a flag. Rather, it embodies the principles that elevate us from a loosely organized group on the North American continent to a civil society. We're pledging to defend the document that contains our civil rights. It also includes the phrase, against all enemies. So if we take a look at the word enemies, let us all, as community builders, as change agents, and simply as individuals, choose our enemies carefully. Build bridges before you make enemies, and we will all profit. In the context of VISTA, of course, the enemy is what? Poverty. So, okay, 2 more things about the oath. First, you may replace the word swear with the word affirm if you so choose. You may also omit the phrase, so help me God, if you so choose. I want to recognize that since we're all in different locations around the country, scattered in so many sites and so many locations, that we don't have the benefit of hearing each other's voices as we recite this. But it's pretty cool to know that as you're taking the oath, scores of your fellow Vistas are doing the same thing at the same time all across America. It may seem a little awkward to recite the oath aloud if you're alone in a room or only yourself and a witness, but really you're taking the oath for yourself. So do it for you and make it count. So now, please raise your right hand and recite the oath aloud along with me. I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter, so help me God.
All right. Well, congratulations. You are now officially a VISTA member. Yay! Yeah, and you're joining along with a couple hundred others. You are forming the newest group of AmeriCorps VISTA members. But before it's actually official, and in order for your living allowance and your other benefits to kick in, there are a few important next steps. So we're going to go over this in detail just to make sure everything is clear. So you, the VISTA member, need to sign and date the form on the line in the white area where it says AmeriCorps VISTA member signature. Then you can have your supervisor or other witness sign the form and date it where it says witness. Just a note about that, the witness doesn't have to actually listen to you recite the oath. They need to witness your signature. So if there's nobody with you right now, hold off on signing it, and then sign it with them and have them countersign where it says witness. Just as a reminder, these have to be original ink signatures, not a digital signature. We're old school. All right. Once you and your witness have signed the form, then you need to scan a copy of it and save it as a PDF file or PDF document. So you can't take a picture of it with your cell phone. That won't work for the official form. It needs to be a PDF, so hopefully there's a scanner. Sometimes it's a copy or fax scanner all in one machine. Someone in your office can likely show you how to use that. Scan it so that it generates a PDF. And then the next step, number 3, is you're going to attach that PDF scanned version of the oath to an email, and you're going to send it to the VISTA Member Support Unit at vmsu@cns.gov. So their email address is there. It's right at the bottom of the form, and we really ask you to do this by the end of the day today. You can imagine there's a couple hundred of you. We've got to sift through all of those, make sure that they're correct and complete, so that we can start getting your accounts activated and your benefits started. So get that done today, if at all possible. And thank you. And here's what you need to include in that email. So the subject line should have the word oath, and then your first name and your last name, and today's date, which is March 18th, 2019. Seems like a small detail, but it's really critical, the subject line, because that way we can sort the hundreds of emails that come in just by looking at the subject line, and we can route them really efficiently. If you don't put in that subject line, your message could get waylaid for a while, and it'll take longer to find your oath, which again could create a delay. So again, use the subject line format that's there at the bottom of the form, and that will help us a lot. All right, so to summarize all of those instructions, when filling out the oath form, put today's date as your first day of service. That's March 18th. List Chris Hawks as the CNCS official. You sign it where it says AmeriCorps VISTA member signature. Have your witness sign just below yours. Scan it into PDF format and email it to the VMSU at vmsu@cns.gov using the subject line, oath, your name, and today's date, March 18th. And please do it today. And please note that when you email the oath to the VMSU, you're not going to get a response confirming receipt. However, if there's a problem, you will hear from them. If they didn't get your oath form or if something's not filled out correctly, they will get in touch with you to let you know.
And so now that we've gotten you all sworn in, we really want to know what you thought. How can we improve this presentation for future VISTA members? And please let us know. We really care about your feedback, and we want to hear what you thought. What worked for you and what didn't. And just to let you know, we really do use your input and feedback to improve future webinars for VISTAs to come. So we ask that you please take a few moments to complete this brief survey, and we thank you for sharing your feedback. And again, to access this link, similar to those documents to download, you would first highlight or select the link in the pod, and then click Browse to. So again, double-clicking it may not work. And for those of you on smartphones or tablets, the survey link pod may not work, but we will post the link to the chat as well so that you can access it through the chat pod. And just give that a minute or two. And we'll give you a few minutes. It shouldn't take long. It's not a long survey. But while you contribute your feedback, we will look over some of your questions. And similar to last week's webinar, there are two ways to ask questions. You can either post your questions in the Q&A pod, which is directly below the slides, and send the questions to presenters. Or you can ask a question verbally by calling in to the number at the top right of the screen. So we're going to start by just kind of looking through, well, we'll reach out to Steve to see if he can give instructions for calling in, just so that you're aware of what to do. But we're probably going to go through some of these Q&A questions first. But Steve? Or is it, yeah. Steve, you there? That's okay. We'll come back to the phone lines in a second. We're going to look through some of these questions. Andy, did you see?
Yeah, we've got a few related to the oath form. So let's see, Jesse asked, if I'm serving with an intermediary organization, which name do I put for the sponsor? Do I put the intermediary, or do I put the local site where I'm serving? And actually, either one will work. If you happen to know the intermediary name, it'd be great to put that there because that'll make it simpler for us. But when in doubt, you can put the local site organization where you're going to be serving. And another one related to the oath, Jordan says, I won't see my supervisor until tomorrow. Can I turn in the oath form then? And the answer is yes, you can. But you don't have to wait for your supervisor to sign. Anyone who's there at the organization can be your witness. So if there's another staff person, another VISTA member They just have to witness your signature. But if, say, you need your supervisor to help you figure out how to use the scanner and get the email set up, that's a different story. And yes, you can wait until tomorrow, but if you can get it done today, it really helps us get a jump start on all the processing. And let's see, a question came in from Yomba about the early service coursework, and it says,
your microphone has been turned on.
So the early service coursework is on the VISTA campus. It's at the starting VISTA page, the same place you went for your pre-service coursework where you did the terms and conditions and the civil rights and all that. Just scroll a little bit further down that page and you'll see a section called early service coursework.
And there are a few questions about the criminal history check and whether and what to disclose. And our recommendation is, when in doubt, disclose anything, even if it was thrown out. There was no conviction. If we're talking about a parking ticket, no, you wouldn't have to do that. So I think someone mentioned traffic violations, and traffic violations is pretty broad, so that could there could be some major ones, or if it's just you got caught speeding 7 miles over the limit in 10 years ago, that you probably don't need to include that. But if you were speeding 40 miles over the limit and it increased the penalty, I would include it just in case.
All right, and let's see, Steve, do you want to give us instructions for asking a question by phone? And it sounds like your mic could be on mute. All right, not hearing Steve. We've got a few more questions.
Go ahead and see. So if you are dialed in, you can go ahead and press *# on your phone, and that'll place you in our queue, and we'll be able to pull you in to have you ask your questions by telephone. Also, if you haven't dialed in, you can dial the number you see in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, the 866-609-4997, and press *#, and that will let you be placed in the queue to ask your question. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Kim. Let's see, we've got some benefits questions. Brady was asking about the health coverage. It says, how soon after today will the health coverage be available, and do we have to sign up, or is it automatic? Well, it's definitely not automatic. You do need to sign up. Within about a week, you'll get an email from the health plan administrator. It's called IMG. And that email will have instructions and a link for where you go. You'll set up an account, and then you will submit your application. You'll pick which of the two benefit options applies to you, and you'll submit it along with some specific information, and then IMG will process it. If you have any questions, you can find the contact details for IMG on the VISTA campus. Their folks are great. They're super knowledgeable, not only about our plan, but about other things related to health coverage, and they'll be able to help you walk through your health benefit application.
We're getting a few questions about whether you're filling out your oath, but there's not a witness. Maybe your colleagues have left for the day, or your supervisor isn't there. So just to kind of repeat, if there is another colleague there, they could serve as a witness. If you are the only person in the office and you absolutely can't get a witness, you can wait till tomorrow to get that signed by your supervisor. Send it first thing in the morning. But that being said, we would really want you to communicate, especially by sending an email notification to the VMSU. So that email address at the bottom of the oath form, just send a note saying, hi, I have my oath all ready. It's just that I don't have anyone as a witness, and I'm going to send it to you tomorrow morning. Just keeping in communication is the best thing you can do at this point.
And we do have one caller in the queue for you.
All right. Please go ahead, caller.
No, I didn't have anything about just waiting for it to end.
No questions at the moment?
No.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. If you have any questions, though, feel free to call in and let us know. We'll continue to monitor these Q&A. But thank you. Kim, were there any other callers in the queue?
No, there was just the one. I have put the instructions again, so if you do want to ask a question, if you're dialed in, just press *#, and that will place you in the queue to ask your question. And if you're not dialed in, you can dial 866-609-4997 and then press *#.
Thanks, Kim. So we're just looking through a few of the additional questions that have come in this Q&A pod. Looks like a lot were answered, but there are a couple other ones. Well, there's a couple asking about the signature, blue or black ink. That doesn't matter. That can be, as long as it's original ink. And just a reminder that you cannot, we can't accept virtual signatures. So it has to be printed out, signed with an ink pen, and then scanned as a PDF and not a photo. Just a reminder on that when you send those in.
All right. Sarah has a question. She says, is the VISTA stipend considered income when filing for Medicaid or SNAP benefits? Great question. In fact, your VISTA living allowance is income. And so when you do your income taxes or when you go to apply for, to rent an apartment or something and they say, please list your income, your living allowance is considered income for those types of purposes. And when you apply for SNAP benefits, the same holds true. Your VISTA living allowance income does get factored in for a SNAP application. However, besides SNAP, other public benefits, whether it's Medicaid or TANF, temporary assistance to needy families, other kinds of housing assistance, Section 8, those programs, your VISTA living allowance is not included. You can download, once your account gets activated in My AmeriCorps, you'll be able to download what's called a service letter that will explain the fact that you are currently serving as a VISTA member, and it gives a summary of the laws behind what's called the income disregard. That is, your VISTA living allowance income is disregarded for calculating most public benefits, but the one exception to that is SNAP. So your living allowance does count for SNAP, does not count for other programs.
We've seen a couple of questions come in about, if your supervisor is not there, and we have to send it in tomorrow morning instead, which date should we use? So good question. So your start date is going to remain the same. Your start date at the top will be today's date, but the date that next to your signature is going to be the date you sign. So that would be when you have a witness there to actually view you signing it. So if you're not able to do it until tomorrow morning when your supervisor arrives, you would put March 19th next to the date that was signed.
All right, I'm just looking through here to see if there are any further questions that I think others will benefit from. Yeah, it looks like most of them are pretty similar to what we've been covering.
Yeah, I don't see many new. A couple more seconds in case anyone happens to be in the middle of typing, but and it looks like 0 callers in the queue. And if you happen to be typing, just FYI, and your question comes in as we're wrapping this up, we will monitor those questions and we can follow up with you afterwards. So we will wrap things up. And before we depart, we want to leave you with another quote from President Lyndon Johnson. And it goes, "On your idealism and on your success rests much of our hope for the final elimination of poverty in our American life." We want to leave you on that and thank you all for your participation. And we really want to congratulate and welcome you to AmeriCorps VISTA. We wish you much success during your